now? They ask. No. So top of the hour. First thing I'm going to mention is I have a new obsession thing. It's a new podcast. It's called Worlds Beyond Number. It's an actual play podcast,
Okay.
and it's really good, really good. And of course, the first thing that it makes me do is realize how GudeLaurance our podcast is, because they have not only, the people that are doing the podcast, it's an actual play podcast for people doing role-playing game stuff where they play a role-playing game and you listen.
Right.
But they have a producer that scores everything, and there are sound effects, and there are like, you know,
It's a
I don't
filled
know,
out
there's
world is
effort.
what you're telling me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing, and I mean this both for you and for the people listening. I I I like the way we do things. I like the fact that we're just, hey, this is what you get, because um and I know that we've talked about having dreams where we're about to go on stage and there's a chance that we don't know our lines, or we don't do we have those fear dreams as normal.
Yeah.
But
Actor's
there's
nightmare sorts of
also,
things.
yes, there is a thing that I think you'll be able to, like, we sort of made a pact with that, if you will. And we said to the actor's nightmare, hey, look, we're going to do you all the time. We're never going to feel comfortable. We're never going to say, okay, we're ready. But we're going to embrace that feeling and get used to the idea that we're scared every time we go on.
Right.
Every time we go on, we're going to feel like we haven't prepared enough.
We're
And
gonna use
that's
it.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I like. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. By the time, no, that's not for a while. We just housekeeping thing. I don't think we're gonna have to worry about it. And when I say I don't think we're gonna have to worry about it, I'm doing a spring break thing for Betty's spring break.
Like a
Which is,
vacation?
yeah, like a vacation. First month, I mean, first week of April, but I'm coming back on Thursday. And by that, I mean, I'm not traveling back on Thursday. Like, I will be at home on Wednesday,
Right.
but I will get back
Ah.
on Thursday. So we'll still have the same thing.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that because my schedule gets kind of all over the place in the next
Okay.
few weeks, and so we're going to be probably needing to reschedule a number of these shows going forward.
Speaking of this, we have rescheduled today's even. It's a Wednesday, not Thursday.
Today's-
And this is going to throw me off for the rest of the time. Oh, speaking about being thrown off for the rest of the time, once again, coming up this weekend, and who knows, people, as Ben and I have often stated, we're writing this for you, the person listening in the future. Hello and welcome. You found it, a treasure trove of two guys talking about what life was like in the early 21st century. So hooray. Enjoy
Welcome.
it. Right now in North America, specifically the United States of America, we are about to participate in something called, are we going from daylight saving time to non-daylight saving time, or the other way around? Do you know?
We are springing forward, which means we are ending daylight saving time.
Okay. So, and I know that every once in a while, whenever daylight saving time comes up, there's a thing that says
We are starting
hey,
daylight saving time.
we're starting daylight
I
saving
guess
time.
that's what my calendar says. Daylight saving time starts.
And there is once again a law to make daylight saving time permanent. So we are going to change the clocks, but then maybe we won't change the clocks anymore.
Right.
As of 2013, however, we are still doing that, changing clocks.
As of what year?
2023. Did I say 2013?
You
Hey,
did.
everybody. But yes, also since 2013, but we did it even before then. It's been around for a while. That's all I can say.
A lot of people are against us changing the clocks. Am sort of like with Paul F. Tompkins on this. He has a routine that starts. I am always amused by people who are thrown off by daylight savings time. It's just an hour adjustment in either direction, twice a year. It's not like you just got back from Australia.
Yeah.
It doesn't really bother me. The only thing that bothers me is that increasingly, like, fewer and fewer clocks I own are connected to the internet, and I have to manually change them myself.
See, now that is an issue. I will say this. The one time that it negatively affected me, I was a salaried employee and I was working a midnight shift.
Right.
And so we fell back. And so all of a sudden my shift that was normally 10 hours was 11 hours. And I complained about it. I'm like, I have to stay here 11 hours. I don't get anything else. They're like, well, don't worry. When we spring forward, then you'll actually work less of a shift.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fine. And then they ended the night shift, so I missed out on both.
So that large
benefits.
company owes you an hour.
Exactly. But well, no, that's not a large company. That was a smaller company when that happened. But I will say this, and I. Again, search the audio, ladies and gentlemen. You will have heard me tell this story often because I do mention it a lot. There was a person that I worked with at one point in time who, yes, as we've said before, with Paul F. Tompkins' thing, got thrown off and showed up an hour late to work because the clocks changed.
Right.
And yet, he showed up an hour late both times.
Yeah.
And I said to him, surely at some point in time, if this was the reason, you would have shown up an hour early.
Right.
But no.
I think this person was just using daylight saving time as a crutch, as an excuse to be late.
Exactly. And I think that's Paul F. Tompkins' meaning as well. That's his thing. Also, interestingly enough, so there's a podcast about Taskmaster. That I've listened to in the past. Paul F. Tompkins was on it, and he stated that he would like to be on Taskmaster at one point in time. And I think it'd be good. But right now we're on Series 13. Series 14, guess who one of the contestants is?
Who?
Your old friend from Mock the Week, the host of it.
Dara O'Brien?
Yep. He is one of the and from what I understand, he's a very interesting person and kind of a smart person into science and all that, and therefore
he hosts. I mean, they made fun of him all the time on Mock the Week, but he hosts a science show. With a British popular science person whose name escapes me at the moment.
He
shares a famous name with somebody else? And
astronomer
they often get confused.
Of some kind? I think I know who you're talking about. It is. Why don't you go talk to blah 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 about it? And blah 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 is his name. I want to say maybe it's Ben something or it's Bill Nye. No, I'm kidding. No, I know exactly who you're talking about. And yeah, it is a famous name. You and I are both thinking of the same person. This is what's so frustrating.
I'm looking it up because it's going to bother me for the rest of the show. Brian Cox.
That's right, Brian Cox. Also,
not the
an
actor Brian Cox. Yes, the actor. Well, actually, The actor Brian Cox is going to be starring in the final season of HBO's Succession, which will start soon, which I'm looking forward to because I enjoy that show. It's another one of HBO's rich people behaving poorly genre.
I will
rich
also
white
say
people
Brian
being
Cox,
jerks.
People don't necessarily know this, but Brian Cox, originator of the character Hannibal for the screen.
In the movie Manhunter.
Oh, shoot. Manhunter. Mindhunter is the series about the guy who, or the people who started the FBI's behavioral science unit thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Manhunter, which I found really, really fun.
There's a pretty famous
exciting
story about that movie in that the actor who played, is it Wild Bill or Buffalo Bill? In the movie, it's one of those. I think it's Buffalo Bill. It's not Buffalo Bill Cody, but the character's name is Buffalo Bill. And he, the antagonist.
Wait, isn't it? Film. Yeah. No. You're thinking of Buffalo Bill is Silence of the Lambs. It's Dollarhide.
Francis Dollarhide.
Or the Tooth Fairy.
That's right. Yeah. Tom Noonan. Yeah, you're right. I got my Manhunter movies mixed up. So Tom Noonan, the guy who played Dollarhide, very famously stayed away from William Peterson, who played Will Graham, the lead in the movie, until this scene where Dollarhide runs through a glass wall towards William Peterson. And before that moment, before the cameras had rolled, those two actors had never met on set.
Oh, interesting.
And that was all Tom Noonan's idea. And because I was watching some sort of making of, and he felt that it would help his character. You know what? Now I'm getting confused. I don't know if it was his idea or William Peterson's idea. One of the actors had the idea to stay away from the other one because it would lend more like authenticity to that one scene.
As we know, Ben, no matter whose idea was it, both actors kind of had to agree to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now here's something that's kind of fun. I have some recollection, and I thought it was Manhunter, but after I saw it a second time, it wasn't, of a person who I thought was Robert Guillaume, and I still think probably was Robert Guillaume, playing some sort of an agent who says, if you're going to, and then beep me, kiss me first to someone else.
Yeah.
I always thought it was Manhunter. I was like, all right, getting ready. And Robert Guillaume wasn't in it at all. And now I want to know what TV show or movie it was where Robert Guillaume played an FBI agent. And also, I was young enough at the time and living in the Midwest enough in the time that it is possible that it wasn't Robert Guillaume. I just thought that it was a black actor who wasn't Gordon from Sesame Street. And just, but I'm almost positive it's Robert Guillaume.
I just Googled that line and Google had no idea what I was talking about.
It is really interesting. I mean, charting the thing where there are some ideas you have as a child and your mind has grown up, but your idea hasn't changed. Does that make sense? Like, there was a time that I was at an amusement park, Six Flags, I think, and there was a log flume ride, and I said, you can't touch the water in here, you'll get electrocuted. And they were like, what are you talking about? And I realized that was something my dad had told me
right
when I was really young.
Just as incentive to keep your hands inside the ride.
Right, and I think that he thought that there were electric parts to it or whatever. I learned
it's
later.
Like the log flume had a third rail.
Exactly, and this is like the log flume, as you know, has no motor. It is just a thing that's being run through with belts, and the belts themselves don't have motors behind them. They're being run by something. So the idea that there would be an amusement park ride that would actively electrocute anyone who would stick their hand in the water is insane.
That does
And when
sound
you
like
think about it, it
a
makes
that
no
does
sense.
that also. I mean, it makes more sense, and it sounds like a cold open to an episode of House.
Yeah. And here's something else that I think is sort of interesting, but and granted, now my adoptive parents never listened to this, and my biological parents never listened to this. If any of you are listening, um, what I'm saying here, I love all of you in different ways and all that. But I was watching this thing on Netflix, which I recommend, Copenhagen Cowboy, which is a TV series on Netflix. And there's the protagonist was taken from her parents when she was really young, right? And
Yeah.
then just grows up in all these different things. And I realized that this isn't a lie. This is actually what happened to me. I was taken, adoption. A child doesn't understand what adoption means or whatever. I was taken from my parents when I was a baby and put in a completely different place.
Well, you were given by your parents to someone.
No, no, and this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. I know that now. I understand the arrangement that was made and all that. But what I'm saying is you can't explain to a baby what is happening.
Well, you can't explain anything to a baby.
Right, exactly. So, in my experience, what happened was I was around my mom, and there's child psychology things you can look in this. I heard her voice and I'm used to her smell and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden she was gone. I'm in a completely different place.
How old were you when you knew you were adopted?
And this is the thing is I was told for as long as I can remember, they mentioned it to me. Right. But there's some weird stuff. I've had constant arguments with my biological father about how much stuff I can remember, how far back one can remember. He's of the opinion that you can't remember back,
Your
past a
adoptive
certain
father.
point. Yeah, adoptive. Yeah, father. Did I say biological?
You did.
Oh, yeah. No, I haven't had any arguments with him about that. We don't argue that much at all, really. Um, but no, to my adoptive father. Thank you for the correction. Um, but like there's a memory I have specifically of my mom, my first adoptive mom, who died when I was 3.
Yeah.
I have a memory of her getting mad at me for saying, "Ooh, what's stinky?" And she said, "I passed gas," and she's really mad at me and very, not like furious, but like, stop making a big deal about it. This is a
Right.
thing that happened. And
Were there guests around or something?
no, it was just us. She was cleaning. And uh and that happened before she died, so I had to have been 3. And it's not something that he could have told me or anyone could have told me because it was just me and her.
Right.
But he is of the opinion that no, you don't have memories like that when you're that young. You can't remember anything, so on and so forth. So it's an interesting situation because, and this is what I'm talking about. I remember distinctly when I was in first grade. I want to say first grade or kindergarten, one of the two. Early when I was in the Pontiac school system in Pontiac, Illinois. I was at an assembly, and this kid at the assembly asked if I wanted to leave and go to his house and play. And I said, sure. So we left school, went to his house, and I remember being in his house and playing, and then a man came and was really mad at us. And eventually I ended up back at
Yeah.
my parents' house. But the thing is, and this is the weird thing, right? When I ended back up at my parents' house, like I don't remember that being my house, if that makes sense. Like
No.
like I don't remember that being I don't remember that being my house, that house with my dad and all that. I don't remember that. But the thing with my mom in the same house, I remember, which was before this other incident. So
Right.
my memory of the houses are of the house itself are really weird.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. You know,
And
there are things.
as a kid,
I was just talking about this to somebody. It's weird when you are a kid and your brain decides to like make certain connections and solidify certain memories.
yeah,
For the rest of my life, I will associate the cereal Sugar Smacks with the theme song to the Facts of Life. Those two things are forever connected in my brain just because at one time in my childhood, possibly many times, I was eating breakfast while watching TV, and those two things happen at the same time.
there's a thing that I read that I think is really really funny. Um, that I could be wrong about this. I think it was Ireland. In some culture, when a historic event was happening, you found one of the youngest children in the village and had them witness the event and then threw them in a lake so that they almost drowned. And then you saved them. And then the idea was that that person would remember that event for their entire lives because of that traumatic event that happened at the same time.
I mean, I guess before the written word, you do what you gotta do.
Like I remember a car crash that I was in, but I wasn't super young, but I remember that the car crash happened on Thanksgiving. I remember another car crash that I had that happened on New Year's Eve. Like it is kind of odd that most of my car crashes happened around major holidays. There
That's when
might
a
be
lot of
something to it.
drinking occurs.
Yeah, but mostly it was me.
Major holidays are also in the wintertime where
Oh,
the
more
roads are
people
slick.
traveling. Yeah, more people traveling also.
And the roads are
But
slick.
the yes, slick roads as well. The only thing I could that happen when I was young, like I said, the my mom dying thing when I was 3 is like one of those spikes that I think about because I can remember before and after. I can remember when I hit my head on the cement breezeway. I remember specific things about that, like my one of my grandparents saying, "You'll be back sooner than you can say Jack Robinson," um, which it was odd. I remember the guy who stitched my head up had a beard and glasses, that sort of thing. I was
Yeah.
pretty young at that time as well, but that
I
was
was
after my mom died.
I mean, I remember a lot of big injury moments when I was a kid. One, I was running on the playground. I don't remember how old I was. Old, young enough to be at recess. And I was running on the playground, and I was not looking where I was running, and I ran face first into a tetherball pole. And
Oh yeah,
this is back when those things weren't padded. It was just a metal pole,
yeah.
and it like knocked me out. I remember the initial hit, and then waking up on the ground, surrounded by everybody. Didn't break my nose. I think if I were like a couple inches either way, I probably would have broken my nose.
I think I remember telling you this before, but that car crash I got in around Thanksgiving. That was when a van full of kids, a minivan full of kids, hit my car. They like flew through a stop sign and hit my car on the side. It was like one of those things that you see on TV now where two people are talking and all of a sudden there's a truck. It
You
was
weren't
like that.
driving. This is when you were a kid, right?
No, this one was when I was driving.
Oh, you were
Thanksgiving
driving.
car.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, hit them. They hit me, and for a split second, this is the only way I can describe it. I know this sounds weird. For a split second, I was in Edwardsville, Illinois, standing outside the library, uh, like like just standing there outside the library, Edwardsville, Illinois, and then back
Hmm.
to near like Edwardsville was in the area, right? But I wasn't in Edwardsville. I was by my parents' house.
Yeah.
And I was back in the car. But just for a split second, it was like I was somewhere else. And I think it's because, when I got hit like that, I got knocked out for a second
Yep.
and had like a little dream. But it was instantaneous. It was like because I was still when I came back, the car was sliding and I was freaking out.
You
And then yeah,
you briefly forced jumped to another dimension and then were pulled back.
exactly. Weird thing about that, I think I mentioned this to you before. We both got taken to the same hospital, right? Me and the kids. And I've mentioned this in podcast before, but I'm almost positive. But I need to tell you the story because it's a great example of the relationship between me and my adoptive father. He came, to help me out. They gave him a call. He was my personal contact at the time. He shows up, and I'm getting checked out, and they say that I'm fine. I'm free to go. So I'm leaving, and we enter into the waiting room where all of the parents of all the kids that were in the minivan are sitting,
Yeah.
and they're talking to one of the kids, and they say, well, the whole town's out here to support you. We're here, we love you, and all that. My dad turns to me and says, I already talked to the people. That car was at fault. You did nothing wrong. And then he leaves and goes to the bathroom. And then they all look at me, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. They probably didn't know who I was until that moment.
Right.
But anyway, so
That is what happened, right? They you weren't
Yeah.
at fault for that one.
I wasn't at fault for that one. Our insurance did not have to pay anything. I was at fault for a lot of other accidents that I was
Right.
in,
Yeah.
but that one was not one of them. But yeah, still planning on not having Betty drive. We're still thinking about places where we might move. I just had someone. You remember Chris Harris? Chris Harris from Groupie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do.
He and
I wouldn't be
had a
able to. I
conversation.
wouldn't be able to. Pull him out of a lineup, but the name sounds familiar.
He lives in Shoreline, and his statement was that he doesn't really recognize Seattle anymore. It's changed enough.
Fair
Um,
enough.
it's possible that living in Shoreline, he missed some of the, or he's able to see it change more rapidly because he's not there all the time.
I think the phrase, and I hear this a lot, I don't recognize it anymore. It's a little hyperbolic. I mean, this is still Seattle. Sure, there are new buildings everywhere, but you recognize it.
And that might have been my phrasing. He
But
just
it's
doesn't
not
like
just that.
it as much.
I hear that all the time.
Oh, so it's not just okay. Maybe they're it's the Mandela effect. This isn't Seattle anymore.
This looks like Phoenix.
The thing I said to him is, if I could live anywhere, it would be Seattle in the late 90s. But you can't move to different time periods.
I was just talking to Cole today, and we were talking about like he's been in his apartment for 17 years, and I asked him what his rent was when he first moved in, and he didn't want to remember what it was.
Yeah.
And I remember that I had an apartment. My friend Chris Jacobs and I. This was back in 1999.
Yeah.
Had an 1,100 square foot 2-bedroom apartment in Renton for $700 a month, and so my share was $350.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
like my health insurance is more expensive than that today, and that doesn't even come close to what my current rent is.
When I think when I moved to the Marwood, I want to say that I was paying $850 a month for that apartment,
Yeah.
um, which was too much. It might have been. I want to say that it might have been like less than that.
Which one was the
But I,
Marwood? Was that the one down like on Summit or near there
yeah,
on North
yeah,
Capitol
I
Hill?
believe so. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that was a nice place.
So the big thing is that if we had to do it over again, like we're planning on being here for like one more year and then moving somewhere else. And one of the places that Jennifer had mentioned, I'm very much of the opinion that I could live pretty much anywhere and find something to do.
Yeah.
I'm like an inside person and all that. I've got you uh on the podcast for friendship. Um and I've got my D&D group here, but they're really the only people that I hang out with, except for Andy. But
Yeah.
Andy is busy a lot. We don't hang out nearly as much as, I had expected that we would when I moved back here.
Yeah.
I don't see him a lot.
Well, you both have jobs
So,
and families and
yeah.
stuff.
And I could always get back on social media of some kind if I got super lonely or whatever. But anyway, so
Desperate
it's mostly
times call for desperate measures.
like where does Jennifer want to live, right? Obviously, Seattle would be part of it, but it is expensive there. One of the other things, I mean, and that's just what something we're gonna have to deal with, because it's going to be expensive wherever we live that isn't here, because
I
nobody
mean,
wants to live here. That's why it's so cheap.
when the mega thrust earthquake hits, property is going to be real cheap around here.
So we were talking about maybe Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, because she's got a friend that lives in Philadelphia. For affordability, we're thinking, Detroit is really interesting. It's super cheap, and it's like I mentioned it's like an entire, it's like Georgetown is an entire city. Georgetown in the early 2000s is an entire
Yeah.
city. It's all these artists are moving there because it's so affordable, and
Yeah.
one of the few places.
I mean, you know what's going to happen then. I mean, Detroit had a real big downturn.
Yeah.
But now that it is super cheap and you can get like a dilapidated mansion for pennies,
Yep.
it is going to be Georgetown, where the artists, the people that make it cool. We were talking about this last week,
Yep.
where it's going to be too expensive for them pretty soon.
Yep. And so, that's a question about. So I don't know.
Get in
We'll see.
early.
My plan still though is to move where the company needs me.
Right.
If in fact that happens, and that is all I'm going to say about work. I work. Hold on to your hats. I work for a company.
What?
Yeah, I know.
I don't.
So yeah, I know. And you live in Seattle.
I do.
Think about that for a second, everybody.
I was actually getting kind of nervous because so the wintertime is normally pretty slow for me, freelance work wise. But the last couple of years I've had two big projects like right off the bat starting in January. And
Wow.
so I didn't have that this year. And now it was like when March 1st hit, I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting kind of nervous because none of my like regular large clients have like large corporation clients have contacted me.
Yeah.
And we're going through a big tech downturn here in Seattle, like with everywhere. And my sister, who works for a large company, said that they've decided, like, they have an edict from upper management to not hire contractors anymore, to keep all the work in house
Yeah.
with employed salaried staff. And so I'm wondering if the big two companies that I have been working for are also doing the same thing. And I'm like, do I need to like start networking and finding new clients? I updated my reel, I updated my LinkedIn, I made some edits on my website. I still have to I had to do a major rehaul of my website. And just yesterday, both of them within a 2-hour period contacted me for work. And so
This is me
yeah, I mean,
clapping. I'm clapping for Ben.
nothing's
That's
like
good to
nothing.
hear.
Nothing is like it's more like availability checks. It's
Yeah.
not like here's a big chunk of money, do stuff for us. It's more like, hey, are you free these days? Which
Yeah.
is just a good sign in and of itself. Um,
We
but
we did
yeah,
notice. I mean, after a while, we noticed a pattern, and we had talked about it, that March, for whatever reason, is a time when a lot of financial issues seem to spring up. Not because of like people aren't paying you, but just like a convergence of real life events happen for some reason,
yeah,
which is why the song March was created.
yeah.
It's basically the idea that it's the hardest time.
If I can make it through March, I can make it through anything.
Yes. I think it's if I can make it through March, I can handle anything. But I could be wrong.
You're the one who
Um,
wrote the book and the lyrics.
yeah, yeah, true. Oh, hey, speaking about March, it has the sound, the sort of morphine sound that sometimes we have because I have the slide on the guitar thing. And I read a little bit more about Mark Sandman.
Yeah.
Uh, Died on stage, as we all know. But one of the things I didn't know about was that apparently in interviews, he would become angry if anyone tried to figure out how old he was. Questions about his age were met with hostility,
I don't know. People have weird hang-ups.
which I thought was
Um,
interesting.
I've watched a couple of live morphine clips on YouTube, and you can just see like how he behaves and how much he sweats. And I'm like, yeah, I am not surprised that dude died of a heart attack while on stage. He does not look healthy at all. But
Gotcha.
there is one thing I like. There's a clip of Primus at some festival, and in during the song "Tommy the Cat," when he is singing as Tommy, the part on the album that is
Yeah.
actually sung by Tom Waits, he uses like an old timey radio microphone, to give his voice that sort of like high cut,
Yeah.
high pass filter kind of thing. And there's a label on that microphone, and it says Sandman because Mark Sandman used that mic a lot. If you watch Morphine in concert, Mark Sandman has two microphones, one regular mic and one like high pass filter mic. And so I thought it was nice, if that's indeed what it was, that Les Claypool and Primus were paying homage to Mark Sandman by labeling the high pass filter mic the Sandman.
That's very nice. I also have a thing. There was an episode of Saturday Night Live hosted by John Goodman that Faith No More played at. And in one of the songs, I think it was Epic, but I could be wrong. One of the songs they played two songs. I think the other one was From Out of Nowhere. Um, Both great. Mike Patton was my favorite lead singer at the time. He climbs into a fan at one point, and the fan says Patton on it, I believe. Uh,
Like Patton Oswalt.
well, Mike Patton, or
Oh,
so.
okay, Patton.
But that's the manufacturer of
Yeah.
The thing. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I remember Patton being on the fan. I'll have to watch it again and find out for sure.
I wonder if Trent Reznor ever has any giant industrial heaters on stage with him.
And he crawls inside of it. That would be nice.
I think our
Trent
fan here is a
Reznor,
Reznor
Mike
branded.
Patton. Trent Reznor, Mike Patton, and Les Claypool supergroup. I'd be interested. I'd listen to that. Did I tell you about Nevermen already?
Neverman.
Yeah. It's the front man from TV on the Radio, Mike Patton, and the front man for Themselves and Subtle.
I don't know those bands.
And they're all together playing their own thing, and it works really, really well. I love supergroups. Okay, I love covers that don't sound like the original, and I love supergroups made up of, people whose stuff sounds like a mixture of like you can hear the
One
I
of my-
believe.
One of my favorite, you probably know
we
where
might
I'm
be
going
talking
with
about
this.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
One of my favorite supergroups, speaking of Les Claypool, is a group called Oysterhead with Les Claypool,
Yep.
Trey Anastasio of Fish, and Stuart Copeland from The Police.
And I had never heard of them. You were the one that turned me on to them.
Yeah. And I think it was Tom Wisely who turned me on to them. And I think they've only released one album, which is a shame.
Yeah. So, speaking of Les Claypool, as we have, did you listen to Pink Floyd The Wall at some point in your life?
At some point in my life, yeah. I don't own the album, so I'm not that familiar. I'm not as familiar with it as I am, say, Dark Side.
Yeah, okay, so Dark Side of the Moon too. But the big thing is that Betty is going through a Pink Floyd stage and has brought me along. And I started noticing that specifically Roger Waters, his voice, especially in The Wall at the more high-pitched things, sounds like Les Claypool to me.
Really?
And of course, I realized then that Les Claypool probably sounds like Roger Waters.
Which one came first?
But so I looked, and sure enough, there is a recording of a live performance where Primus is doing "In the Flesh" off of Pink Floyd The Wall, and there are a couple other ones, and he's great. Les Claypool really can do that.
That he auditioned to be the bassist for Metallica, and they didn't hire him because he was too good.
Yeah.
And they were like, "You actually need to start your own band."
to say nothing though of the current bassist of Metallica, who was also really kind of I don't know his name, but I saw a little bit of a clip of them auditioning bassists and stuff. And he plays Metallica songs with no pick. He just does the finger playing, which was insane.
At one point, I actually should go back and rewatch this documentary because I think about it a lot. It's the Metallica documentary. I believe it's called Some Kind of Monster.
Yeah. It is called Some Kind of Monster.
And yeah, I remember I came home one day and it was like one of my roommates was watching it and it had just started, so I sat down and watched it too. And Metallica was never really one of my favorite bands. Like I knew their major hits like Enter Sandman and maybe that's all I knew at that point. But it was just fascinating seeing the dynamic of all the guys in the band and how when you become that big of a supergroup, the sort of like personality push-pull that happens when you're trying to do something creative, like make a brand new song.
You become because you're all businessmen at that point.
You become some kind of monster.
So the one thing I wanted to note. This is the one thing I wanted to note. This is my
A flat.
My ukulele here, and I've started playing I just wanted to talk about my right hand for a second. I play like this now.
Yeah.
So I used to play bass like this. Right? This
Just
is
your
my
middle
bass playing.
finger up and down. Yeah.
The middle finger and the first two fingers. Like that.
Okay.
And I used to play ukulele like this with my thumb back and forth. And then I started practicing both at the same time, and eventually my hands just started doing this on its own. So I'm hitting the thumb and hitting the two fingers, and it's cool, and I love it. And I never would have done it if I were taking lessons from somebody.
And Zoom does not do it justice. But lessons, I mean, that's the thing that I learned from John Ackerman, where I won like at an auction, a 1 hour guitar lesson from John. And one of the things that he told me was that it's really hard to teach people who have studied for a while on their own, is because you can't unlearn it's hard to unlearn bad technique.
Yep, exactly. And that's why I'm never taking lessons.
And apparently I am full of bad technique.
Oh, yes. Hey, bad technique. Great name for a GudeLaurance album, Ben. Bad technique is good.
Bad technique, yeah.
That's okay. Write that down. Put it in the thing. Absolutely. Yeah, because yeah. Here's the thing, right? Eventually, and I'm going to be 50 on May 15th of this year, right?
I'm going to be 47 tomorrow.
What?
Yeah.
What? Happy birthday, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, tomorrow's my birthday.
I didn't know. Oh. 3-9.
Every year.
Happy birthday, Ben. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, you were saying you're going to be 50 soon?
Oh, yeah.
In May?
In May, yeah. That doesn't matter as much as your birthday.
Thank
you for telling me. Oh, no. Not at all. Oh.
But
here we go. Hold on.
As people listen to this on the podcast, it will be last Thursday.
Yeah, so we're going to say March 9th. And new event titled Ben's Birthday.
Every year. Happens on the same day.
Ben's birthday.
But as we are speaking today on March 8th, today is International Women's Day.
Repeat, every year.
For all of the
international women. Is it always going to be March 9th?
Who cares about the domestic women?
Is your birthday
It's not Domestic Women's Day. It's International Women's Day.
Everyone's an international woman.
Somewhere.
Everywhere except the country where they live. So, But Ben...
Schrodinger's...
Yeah, Schrodinger's... Hold on, wait. Do you know about Schrodinger's friend? Have you heard about this already?
Schrodinger's friend. What is that?
Yeah. The idea is basically this. So there's the cat, right? And the cat is in this indeterminate state until Schrodinger opens the box and looks at the cat, and then the waveform collapses.
The observer. Not
the observer.
Schrodinger, but...
Right. But in this case, it's Schrodinger, because why not? He's like, oh, what am I doing here? Schrodinger's friend, until Schrodinger calls his friend and tells him what his observation is, the cat is still in that indeterminate state, which is crazy.
What if Schrodinger, what if Schrodinger had video technology available to him?
I think that he would count as an observer. They do a thing with the single slit experiment that's really weird, where they record it, but they don't watch the recording, and if they
7 days,
I want to say something freaky happens, and I don't remember what it is. Please, disclaimer, this is not scientific. It's something weird, like if they record it.
Tuning into our podcast for scientific advice.
if they record it and they don't watch it, it's still a deterrent until they actually watch the recording. Something like that. It's something kind of freaky of that nature. Either that
It has to
or
be a human observer.
yeah, maybe. Or else if somebody eventually watches it, and so this person sets a bomb that's going to go off once somebody observes the thing. Actually, you
Pop
did mention
quiz,
that
hot shot.
exactly. um, but you did mention The Ring a little bit. 7 days after
I
you watched
alluded
the
to it. Yeah.
yeah. So what about that? I mean, the thing's recorded, but you have to watch it in order to. So
Right.
what if somebody uh rotoscopes the Ring movie and then takes the frame or takes the layer that the Ring was off? Do you still then is it do you die like less time? What happens exactly?
Worth finding out. I mean, what if you like? So it's a VHS tape. That's the whole thing is based on like a VHS tape, or maybe not VHS, but magnetic tape technology,
Yeah.
regardless of what format it is. So what if you took
Oh,
the
if it
tape
were
out of the?
beta.
What if you took the tape, you ripped it out of the cassette somehow, and you looked at it, like you didn't put it through a VCR or a Betamax or anything. You put it on a reel to reel. You know, you can't watch it. You cannot watch it because you don't have like the magnetic
It's not
inputs.
decoding it.
Exactly. It's not reading the picture, but you are still observing the actual film outside
Yeah.
of its observable state.
I think the idea was Samara. That was her name, right? Samara.
Do not recall the name.
Um, so there's a thing, um, especially in the 80s, this thing with indigo children or whatever, these psychic kids, the tomorrow people, whatever you want to say, where they could make pictures on Polaroid photographs. Like you would take a blank Polaroid photo and then they'd concentrate really hard and they could make a photo into something.
Fancy trick.
I think the idea was that Samara was making this videotape psychically. Like she burned the images into this tape. I think if you watch it, that was the idea. And so,
I have the Ringu DVD. I should go back and watch
oh
it.
yeah, the Ringu DVD was weird. That the psychic guy was taken out of it. There was a friend of hers that was a psychic dude, I believe, that wasn't in the other Ring. Hey, speaking of Brian Cox, The Ring, he's in that.
And it's filmed in Seattle. Well, parts of it are filmed in Seattle.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And on the ferry to Bainbridge Island, if that was the ferry that it was on.
I don't it if although if I recall correctly, so I saw The Ring in the movie theater, and I remember watching that moment where like the horse breaks out of
Yeah.
its containment on the ferry, and it looks like the ferry's in rough seas, and I'm like, the Elliott Bay doesn't really get that rough. It
Yeah.
looked like
That's right.
the open ocean. Oh, well, not the open
Man,
ocean,
Ben,
but
I tell you what, if it does it cost more to live on Bainbridge Island than it does in Seattle?
it might. Yeah, I think gas is more expensive there.
Because I was gonna say, um, if you could live on an island near Seattle where you need a ferry to get on and off the island, and it's cheaper, I would totally do the Bay Bridge ferry commute. To hang out with you.
Vashon is probably where you want to live. I think Vashon might be cheaper than Bainbridge. Vashon's more rural.
Is Vashon cheaper than Seattle to live in, though?
I mean, Vashon's got a lot of farmland. You could probably find something on Vashon that is cheap.
Oh my gosh! Oh, this is news. This is
And
news.
Bainbridge, although technically an island, you can drive there from the mainland. With Vashon,
Whereas
you
Vashon,
cannot.
you can't. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jennifer would go for it. I think Jennifer doesn't like being trapped with no exit plan.
You are at the
But that
mercies of
would
the ferry system.
be something that I would get a kayak.
Have fun with that.
Yeah. No. Yeah, so I don't know, but in the case of a zombie apocalypse, be okay maybe.
Michael Hayes lived on Vashon for a number of years, and what he did was he actually found a family that had like a mother-in-law unit above a barn,
Yeah.
and so that's where he lived. And like he also like helped feed the horses and stuff. I don't think that like got cut any. I don't think that cut his rent any. I think he was just being a nice
Yeah,
person. But you might be able to find something like that.
because I don't know. I mean that'd be. I would rather live. This is just me personally, right? I would rather live on Vashon Island,
Vashon.
Vashon, uh, Vashon Island, and take the ferry, than live in like North Bend and drive a whole bunch.
And I believe the ferry from Vashon to Seattle is free.
Right. It's just to get Seattle to
But the
Vashon.
thing is, the Vashon ferry doesn't go downtown. The Vashon ferry goes to West Seattle. So
Yep.
you wouldn't be able to like walk to the light rail and go to Capitol Hill or anything like that. You'd have to drive
Take a bus.
or take a. I'm sure there's buses.
Yeah. But I mean, even that would be workable. Because West Seattle was nice. I liked being there. So yeah. Just nothing is anything yet.
You're right.
But still, it's worth checking out. I think if we were to do that, the chances of us seeing our friends that live there would be much better than us living in, say, Detroit, as an example.
Yeah.
Although
Detroit's a little
everybody
far
moved to
away.
Detroit, Annex moved to Detroit. Annex in Detroit, Ben. Think
Annex
about it.
East.
Annex East.
Or
Annex North.
Annex North Central.
Yeah. You heard about that. Folks in Minnesota wanting to label themselves North. Like not Midwest, we're North. Which I liked.
They can do what they want.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Fever Tree. The Rap Collective, I think, were big into that. Oh,
Yeah.
speaking about that, Cascadia, the idea of splitting off from the rest of the country sounds great until you learn about some of the people who proposed that way back when.
Are they white nationalists?
Yeah, exactly. That was conceived as an ethno state. Now you don't have to do it that way.
God damn it.
But there was a person where, because we were talking about places that we'd like to live in the United States, and one person said Oregon, and somebody was like, "Hey, look into the history of Oregon for a little bit. Just take a look," and it's very interesting. Not completely interesting, but just.
I remember being a kid and learning about Pacific Northwest history and learning that this whole area, Washington included, was called the Oregon Territory. And
Yep.
I was being from Washington, I was a little miffed at how come it wasn't called Washington Territory.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and now you know. It's because they wanted
more
two
you know.
things named Washington, so it could be ultimately confusing for everyone about what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And then when you say, well, I was Capitol Hill in Washington,
Yeah, that doesn't help matters any.
and that doesn't help either. Yeah. So,
Doesn't.
hey, Ben.
Yeah. I live in the other Washington. Well, piss off.
Guess what?
Is it that time?
We are at the end of this podcast, so we can end early so that Jennifer can go on her little. Those of you who don't know, Jennifer fact checker from way back. My wife, Jennifer Pratt, is an audiobook producer. So if you're interested in someone producing your audiobook, why not check her out? Jennifer L.
Indeed.
Pratt.
L.
And I'm
Pratt.
sure there's a website that I should have mentioned, but I think we're good for now. And Ben,
All right,
keep it wrong.
Paul, I implore you to keep it wrong, and if you don't, I'll find out.
And once you find out, what are you gonna do about it?
I'll talk to you next week.
Oh, all right.